So it's almost like when I have this moment of this is pointless or questioning what it is that I'm after, I actually get kind of excited. But I'm doing a no-no, getting ready for this episode. I've been sitting here messing with the perfect lighting, trying to get the camera right, and just delaying hitting record. And now it's 7:11 in the morning, and this podcast is going to be a little bit later. I got to take the boys to get donuts in about 50 minutes, so I just am hitting play. So I know this is going to make Tyler annoyed. The lighting's not perfect. I think the camera might even be a little angled, but that's okay because in doing all this, all that matters is the message gets out. It doesn't have to be perfect. So just share that with anybody out there creating content that's always beating themselves over things that need to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. The message is what needs to be loud and clear. And you get free passes from time to time if the lighting's not right or if it's angled a little bit. No big deal. So don't let perfection be the enemy of great. And hopefully this will be a great episode. The title, as you saw, is called "This Is Pointless." And if you aren't familiar with Jack Butcher, I have on a sweatshirt of his, because I just buy his merch all the time, of a visualized value that he did that was called "This Is Pointless." And if you can see it, you can see a bunch of small lines, and then it ramps up. And on the visual that he created, around here, it says "This is pointless" below. And then you see that, boom, it goes off. And this is the perfect sweatshirt for today's conversation. I have an old cartoon that I love, and shout out to my director of operations at RLS Wealth, Darlene. She actually had an artist draw this for me for Christmas one year, but you've probably seen it before, or a version of it. But it's two guys digging underground. One is on top, one's below, and one guy has given up. He said, "This is pointless." He's turned around, he's going away, and he's literally like one strike with his axe or his pick to getting to this big old diamond treasure on the other side. And you have another guy that's about halfway. He's probably like still down here. And he is just, in this illustration, you can see that he is just motivated. He's not giving up, and he is chipping away. And there's no doubt he's going to find that treasure. And he's not going to give up. He's not going to say this is pointless. So I've always loved that. And when I saw Jack create this visual, and then he turned it into an NFT, which I wish I could have bought, I loved it. And then a couple weeks ago, he dropped it as a hoodie. And of course, as if I don't have enough black hoodies, I bought it just because I love this message. I actually have a big canvas that I went, and Jack talks about permissionless businesses and things. I'm not going to go sell this canvas, but I right-clicked and saved the NFT. For those of you that are crypto fans, you know what that means and the joke behind that. But I took it and I created a big canvas that's going to go behind my iMac in my office. Just as an always reminder, I naturally have this mentality, but it doesn't mean that I don't fall victim to sometimes questioning, rather than saying this is pointless, questioning why am I doing this, why is it working, and feeling sorry for myself sometimes, which is what I want to share today, because you're going to have that in your life at some point on your pursuit as well. And I've always viewed them as tests. So it's almost like when I have this moment of this is pointless or questioning what it is that I'm after, I actually get kind of excited. And it sounds kind of backwards, but because I know that whatever it is that I'm questioning or whatever's happening that's making me second guess or bringing that negative thought into my mind, I view it as a test. And I'm going to find out one or two things. One, this thing that I've been pursuing is not really what I should be pursuing, and it's time to pivot and go back. And hopefully that's not the case, but it's good to know that because I don't want to waste more time. Sunk cost fallacy, we talked about that last week. All right, all that time's gone. Time to bail back. This isn't right because this sign that I have now has told me that. Or, which is what I think which I know this last week was, that I'm talking to share with you. Or, it's not time to pivot back, it's time to continue to push forward. that I am that guy that's one strike away from the treasure, or the next big breakthrough, or the next big momentum swing, or the next big creative idea that's going to take me and build my excitement back up and push me forward. So I'm hoping a lot of times when those challenges come, that's what I'm going to find. But you never know. But one way or the other, I know I'm going to keep on going, or I'm going to pivot back and go find the right thing, and I'm going to take all this experience and help me become better for the next thing that I'm pursuing. And you're going to have it happen. And I think I would encourage you to consider it and view it as a test. So, okay, here it is. God, the universe wants to find out, how bad do I really want this thing that I'm pursuing? Is it really a passion of mine? Or is it just something I thought would be fun and it's really not worth this little bit of sacrifice or discomfort to keep moving forward? So that is how I would encourage you to view these moments as they come. And they're going to come. And what better way to talk about it than to share a recent one that I had just this week. Now, I noticed on, I believe it was Monday, that I was operating on a level of a lower frequency. I'm usually high frequency, energy, creative, optimistic, happy, but that doesn't mean I'm always that way. And I wanted to share this story because, one, I want to be transparent. Two, I think there's some learning lessons that will help you on your pursuit. And three, there are a few things that I want to encourage you to consider. Do you have these things in your life on your pursuit to help you because they help me? So I'm going to reference my notes from time to time to make sure I don't forget anything, which is weird as I make fun of my dad on my other podcast with him, the next episode, his notes. But I've got enough things I want to make sure that we cover that I don't want to hit. So I don't want to miss. So earlier this week, I was catching up on one of my favorite podcasts, and the conversation with somebody who builds brands and has had success building brands online and marketing and those types of things. And I'm listening to it, and it's very casual on the amount of success that he has had doing the things that you do, building a brand online and a business online, which are things that I'm doing and have been doing. And just instead of being inspired by it and encouraged by it, for whatever reason, I took it as, man, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not in his shoes? Why am I not on that podcast? Why am I not talking about these things? And I began to make it about me. And, it's the ego creeping in. And we haven't talked a lot about ego before, but I love the Stoics, and they have thoughts on ego. When you read Eckhart Tolle and Deepak Chopra, the ego comes in there as well. So ego is something to be aware of, and we'll dive in more on our pursuit, but I don't feel like I am well-versed enough to talk about it, other than I just know that it was my ego. I was making it about me, which is the wrong thing to do when it comes to thinking about my pursuit. Got a ladybug in my microphone. Not sure what that means, but hello, Mr. Ladybug. So listen to that podcast. And then I pulled up the website. I don't know why I did this, for a pretty big conference that's coming up later this year. And I've referenced this conference before, and I have a lot of friends who are speaking at it, which I'm super excited for them. And there's a lot of real big names that are there. And when I look at that list, I'm kind of like, damn, why am I not there? What am I not doing? How have I not elevated myself in the advisor space to be somebody who sought to be on this? And the thing is, I get opportunities to speak, but it doesn't mean that I'm immune to having these thoughts. Most of the time, I don't have these thoughts. Most of these times, I'm trying to live in the moment, be present, and not worry about the things that are supposed to be. But I'm human, I'm working, I'm growing. You're going to have these thoughts as well. So if you have these thoughts, it's okay to have them. The key, and the reason I want to talk about this, is to recognize it and stop that thought, which is thankfully one of the things I've gotten good at. So I noticed the feelings I had on that podcast. I was aware of it. I told myself, hey, that's not the right way to think about it. If anything, there's some positives from this, that you're doing the right things. Focus on that, not focus on where you are, where pursuit is, or where you're not. I recognized that I was feeling a certain way about the conference, and I needed to stop it, because it wasn't about me, and it's, there's got to be something, there's reasons why that I don't know, and it doesn't matter. And then revisiting my why. My why for what it is that I do, and for pursuit, which is where my focus for growth really is, it doesn't involve those things. I would welcome them. They would definitely be fun things to do. They would definitely provide some, validation that I don't really need and shouldn't be seeking, but it's nice to get from time to time. But they're not on my list of things that are of great importance. So why do I care so much about it? And again, it's ego, it's distraction, it's tests. So I was able to recognize that and begin to kind of shift my thoughts into more positive, optimistic spaces, go outside, take for a walk. And I didn't want to let that low vibration or negative energy continue to compound, because then I know it's going to bring other negative things with me. So the two paths I could have gone is continue to feel sorry for myself, throw myself a pity party, or recognize it, acknowledge it, accept that it's okay to have those feelings and think that way, and then move forward more back to the optimistic, because feeling sorry about those things is not going to move me in the direction that I want to go. Getting back to being creative and optimistic and happy and positive thoughts and seeing my vision out, that's going to move me where I want to go. So I wanted to share those thoughts and just be transparent, because I know that I put out an optimistic image, which is really who I am. But even the most optimistic person has those moments where they have that doubt, they have imposter syndrome. Those things come in for everybody. It's just, can you recognize it? Can you stop it? So moving out of that, I just had reminded myself that when it comes to pursuit, when I think about that podcast, this is super early for pursuit. Yes, I've been creating more than I've ever created. I've got a clear vision. I'm excited for the future. I'm gaining traction, but realistically, I'm only a couple months in. So to expect a couple months in on a new venture to match what somebody else has been doing for years is foolish. And I know that. And it's stupid. And I shouldn't do that. And I caught myself doing it. All of that, I had to remind myself, all of the work I've done in the past doesn't carry forward on pursuit. It's a totally different audience. It's a totally different venture. It's a totally different message. So yes, it'd be great to say, oh, all of that work from the last 7 years, that gets to carry over and speed things up. But the reality of it is it doesn't. Maybe there's a little bit of overlap, but for the most part, who I'm trying to reach doesn't know me. They're not all about your Benjamins. They're not the advisor community that I've built. So I have to look back at all of that long game I was willing to play with All About Your Benjamins and everything else. I've got to be willing to play that long game with pursuit, which I am. Now, there are lessons I've learned from all of that past content creation that I can use with pursuit to try to speed things up and make that growth curve maybe a little bit faster, like Jack Butcher's drawn. But it doesn't carry over. It doesn't automatically get me to where I'm at. So I needed to get my headspace there. And after I kind of got to a good space, I happened to have a phone call with a friend that was already scheduled. That was perfect. We continued the conversation a little bit. We got caught up, and I was sharing with him where I was and where I'd gotten to. And we just kind of continued the conversation, and it was just confirmation of how I got myself out of that little low vibration time period. Was just continuing to push me back up to a high frequency, a high vibration. So having somebody who understood where I was coming from, what I was thinking, could be a listener, but could also give me some good advice, challenge me a little bit, was perfect compliment to what I had done by myself. And then the next day, I was getting caught up on one of my favorite podcasts, and I will shout this one out, Not Investment Advice, Jack Butcher again. And they had a second episode last week that I didn't get a chance to listen to. I listen every Thursday to their episodes, but I didn't get a chance to listen to it. And it was basically the other two hosts, Trung and Bilal, interviewing Jack to some extent. They all were talking, but about this building visualized value and the creation process and the time, and this is pointless. And it was the perfect podcast for me to hear, to just bookend the self-work I did, the conversation I had with my friend, and then boom, this just was the final, the nail in the coffin of me being past that moment of weakness earlier this week. So it was a great episode. If you are a creator or think you're going to be a creator, I think even if you're a builder, you should listen to that episode and just listen to what they talk about and the advice that Jack gives, because I thought it was great. So just a quick recap. Earlier in the week, I come into the week feeling great, having good, wake up, for whatever reason, have a day where I'm not operating at the usual vibrant frequency and vibration that I'm at, which is usually high. I noticed it, have a few moments of self-pity, of why am I not here? What am I not doing right? Boo-hoo. And recognized it, stopped that train of thought, got refocused, talked to a friend, the podcast capped it in, and then moved forward. And I wanted to share a few things that I think that will help you when you have these moments, because again, you will have these moments. So first, I think it's very, very important to have the self-awareness to identify when you move from a level of high vibration to one that's lower, from a high frequency to a low frequency, being able to recognize it in yourself. And I think that meditation helps. I think journaling helps. Just those practices may not in themselves help you recognize it, but those practices will help you to better learn yourself and understand your thoughts and understand and just be more tapped into your inner self. So you could use meditation, you could use journaling to get yourself out of it. Very well could be your way of getting out of one of those moments. But I think if you do those practices, or whatever the practice is right for you, to help you better understand your inner self, that is going to help you shake that low vibration quicker. Again, think about it. If you go back to Bob Proctor, he talks about the law of attraction. The frequency and the vibration that we're operating on is going to track like frequencies. So if you're on a low vibration, low frequency, it's going to track other low frequency things and people, which is not what you want. So you want to recognize, hey, today's one of those days, I'm a little off, I'm operating down here. What can I do to get myself back up? And don't beat yourself up for operating down low. That's normal. Just don't stay there. Move past it, get back up, elevate yourself back up, and get back to building and creating and doing the things that make you happiest, following the passion that's there. So self-awareness is going to be very important to understand when you're there. Pursuit, PRST, R is for relationship. My conversation with my friend was perfect. The timing was perfect. I think that there's a reason for that. But also having somebody who understands where I'm coming from, who's a creator himself on his own pursuit. We're on that same path together, just different paths, our own path. So to have somebody who understands that can be a voice of reason, that can listen and then give you advice and also challenge you, push you forward and say, hey, maybe this is a reason for that. Have somebody there, have people that can challenge you, that understand where you're coming from. Doesn't mean everybody in your life has to be the same way. We have people who compliment us in other ways, but having people in your life that are on their own pursuit, that understand it, that are operating from a similar frequency and vibration, that's going to be important for you as well. So you're not alone and you have somebody to help you get through it. The third is, I think, aside from having somebody you can talk to, having others or sources of inspiration that you can fall back onto to kind of refocus you. So for me, it was not Investment Advice Podcast, but I also watched a Rick Rubin documentary this week. Last night I was watching a Tony Hawk documentary. Those are creative people who I think have lived a life of pursuit that I can watch and listen to and learn from, and then pull that motivation, pull their energy into my life and elevate me as well and inspire me. So have the person in your life, but maybe that person's not always available. Have a go-to source of inspiration. Maybe it's somebody you can watch their YouTube channel or listen to a podcast and just get their energy and feed off of that, feed off their creativity and their building to kind of elevate you, or whatever it is they do that motivates you. It doesn't have to be creating building. Maybe it's a spiritual person or whatever it might be, but have a source of inspiration that you can go to as a backup or as a complement to everything else that you're doing. And finally, maybe the most important is remember your why. Why are you down this pursuit that you're questioning in that moment? Why are you on this pursuit that you are feeling sorry about your progress in that moment? What's the why behind it? It's probably not the reason that's making you feel the way you're feeling. So for me, my why is not the conversation that was on the podcast. My why is not speaking at this big conference. Although if there ever was a conference I wanted to speak at, this was it. But I moved past it. Those weren't my whys. Those are nice things that could happen. Those are things that I would accept if they were presented to me. But that was never a part of my why. My why is the passion of helping other people find their passions, find their interests that will create a better life for them. Those things aren't necessary for that to happen. So getting back to your why, which is most likely going to be a passion or an interest that you're exploring to create a passion or to find out if it's a passion. Get back to that. Your why wasn't whatever it's there. Your why was following this thing. Get back to that passion, get back to that interest, let it be your guide and get you back on track. So those are a few things I think that you can use to recenter yourself, reground yourself, refocus yourself to move forward. So a couple of final thoughts, just I think it's fun to share these, that as I look back over the week and kind of reflect on all of this and my thoughts, there's actually a couple of positives that I see from the message that I could have missed. One, when I look at the conference, that is a conference for financial advisors. I've done conferences like that before, and I love talking to financial advisors about financial advisors. I will always be an advisor. I want to inspire advisors. So there is part of me who does want to have those opportunities. But when I think about my future growth is pursuit. And that doesn't necessarily line up with that conference. I think that there's a pursuit conversation that could be had on that stage. And maybe that happens in the future when pursuit has impacted more lives and I can show that what I think and what I'm doing is actually changing people's lives for the better. And then I can have a seat at the table, and that's perfectly fine. But I am wondering if that omission from speaking there, once I get past ego, is actually telling me I'm moving in the right direction. I am elevating to the next version of myself, which is still a financial advisor, but focused on something different. And that my seat at the table is actually at a different conference that I don't even know exists yet. So that is one thing that I took from that as a reflection of, this might be a sign that I am moving from the old version of myself, who would have been on that stage, no questions asked, to a newer version of myself that is still reinventing and growing and becoming, and hasn't grown into that next version of myself to be on a stage like that. So I look at it as, hey, this is a sign you're moving in the right direction if pursuit is really what you want, and pursuit is really what I want. So I'll always be an advisor, but not the advisor who needs to be up on stage. There's other people who can help advisors better than I can. I am growing into an advisor who's just focusing on his clients and has this creative venture of pursuit that will help more people in a different way. And one day that stage will be there at a conference I don't even know exists, that I should be there. And at the end of the day, I'm super happy for my friends, and the conference is going to be awesome. I can't wait to go out there. So it's a win for me. There was just a moment of ego catching up and getting in there. And then also that the other thing is the blueprint that I'm following, the blueprint I have followed in the past, I've experienced, I know it works, the blueprint that I'm following for Pursuit to grow this brand, to help more people, and ultimately help this be a part of my personal financial plan, because I have financial goals that I hope Pursuit contributes to. It works. That podcast was talking about all the stuff I've been doing, and that individual was at a level of quote unquote success. So just a reminder of, don't worry about where I'm not at right now. It's that the stuff that I'm doing does work. I know it works from personal experience, and I know it works from listening and watching other people. So focus on the fact that the actions I'm doing work, and they will work. I just have to remember that sunk cost fallacy, all that stuff I did in the past does not carry forward, does not pour into Pursuit, other than the lessons I've learned to make Pursuit better, rather than trying to learn while I grow Pursuit. I've already learned. Take what I've learned, get better, improve here, and keep doing the things I've always done, and good things are going to happen. So hopefully my week can help you on your pursuit. And maybe it helps you now, but maybe it happens in the future. Bookmark this episode for the day that you have one of those. Maybe this can be one of those inspiration sources that helps you get out of that funk, because it's going to happen. And it's going to happen to me again, but I'm thankful that I am able to pick up on it really quick and then shut it down quicker and get back to moving forward. So you're allowed to have those moments. I don't want you to allow yourself to stay down longer than you should. Process it, accept it, do what you need to do to get refocused, go back to your why, which is your passion, and let that passion guide you from your heart to where you're supposed to go. So I want to end it with that. So thank you for tuning in as always. Thank you for joining me on my pursuit. It's an honor to join you on yours, and let's keep pursuing.